In the shadowed memory of the ancient world, where myth and history bore like incense smoke in forgotten temples, there lived a figure the Olympians cursed and mortals never forgot, Prometheus, the firebringer. But this is not the tale of Prometheus taught in classrooms or carved into schoolbook margins. No, this is the other Prometheus, the veiled one, the version told only in whispers by mystics and madmen. The one who did not simply defy Zeus, but something far older, more cosmic, a celestial order whose laws predate Olympus itself. The myth begins, as many do, in a world newly formed. The gods, not yet distant and abstract, but present thunders, walking among men, had shaped a human race from clay, brittle, and din, breathing into it life, but not fire. Fire was divine, a spark of the heavens, guarded jealously. In the old stories, it is said fire was not just heat or flame, it was tech, the sacred art, the blueprint of civilization, the inner sun that allowed thought to transcend instinct. And so humanity, blind and shivering, was made to crawl in cold mud, without light, without craft, until Prometheus, Titan-born and cunning beyond comprehension, saw their condition and made a choice. He stole the fire, he reached into the divine realm, and tore loose a secret never meant for flesh and blood. Some say he hid it in a hollow stalk of fennel. Others say he hid it in the breath between words, or in the fire that dances behind the eye when the mind dreams beyond its limits. What he gave humanity was not merely flame, it was forbidden gnosis, the sacred knowledge that awakens consciousness, that unlocks not just tools and weapons, but will, memory, and the dangerous capacity to imagine beyond one's station. For this transgression, Prometheus was punished with eternal torment, chained to a rock and altar, perhaps, or something far older. His liver was devoured each day by a vulture, only to regenerate at night, a cruel parody of resurrection, a divine sentence. But this punishment raises a deeper question, one far more unsettling. Why did the gods fear humanity with fire? Why was the act of illumination, of bringing light to the ignorant, worthy of eternal suffering? And what sort of being would know the cost and still pay it? This question has echoed through the secret halls of occult orders, through the glyphs hidden in temples and catacombs, through the marginalia of banned manuscripts. And those who seek beyond the surface of the myth find something deeply unnerving. Prometheus does not belong only to Greece. Long before Hellenic myth took form, figures uncannily similar to him wandered the sacred landscapes of Sumer, Egypt, Persia, and beyond. The Sumerians spoke of Enki, the trickster god of wisdom, who defied the higher gods to bring knowledge to mankind. The Zoroastrians honored Adar, the holy fire, the pure flame of creation, the principle of divine order and consciousness. In Vedic hymns, Agni, the fire deity, is not just a god, but the messenger between worlds, the bridge between mortal and divine. And in Egypt, the flame was hidden in the eye of Ra, a symbol of divine wrath and illumination kept tightly guarded. Each myth, each culture, tells the same veiled story. There was a being, or perhaps a force, that descended or fell to give humankind a spark it should not possess. Prometheus is not a name. Prometheus is a mask worn by a very old presence. And if that presence did not come from the gods, then where did it come from? The Church Fathers, centuries later, seemed to sense the danger in the tale. They denounced Prometheus not merely as a mythological figure, but as a blasphemous archetype, a mirror of Lucifer, the light bringer, not Satan the tempter, but Lucifer the illuminator, cast from heaven for offering forbidden light to the world. In this comparison, the myth of Prometheus takes on an even darker shimmer. The fire was not just stolen, it was a rebellion, a breach in the celestial hierarchy, a defiance of the divine command that sought to keep men in sacred ignorance. The serpent in Eden, the watchers of Enoch, the light-bearing rebel cast down from heaven, was Prometheus one of them? Or was he their echo? The wind whispers through the ruins, and the fire flickers at the edge of memory? The answer does not lie in modern texts, but in ancient stone, in shattered tablets, and cracked mosaics, in the symbols that stare back from the past like eyes carved into the dark. And so, we follow the path deeper into the myth, into the archetypes buried in our collective memory. We follow the serpent, we follow the fire, we follow the light bringer. In the garden, before shame had a name and before death was written into the bones of man, a serpent spoke. He did not hiss with venom, but with invitation. Ye shall not surely die, your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. This voice, like fire, offered knowledge, forbidden, illuminating, irrevocable. And for this, he was cursed, like Prometheus, as one peers deeper into the myths. A pattern begins to emerge, like an ancient sigil hidden beneath centuries of paint. Across civilizations and sacred texts, there appears a consistent figure, not always in form, but in function, a being who intervenes, who descends, who violates divine decree in order to gift knowledge to humankind. The serpent of Eden, Prometheus. Upon the rock, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who brought the calendar and mathematics to the Mesoamericans. Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe who gave Egypt writing and calculation. Enki, who defied the Anunnaki to warn humanity of the coming flood. Lucifer, whose name means light-bearer. Each one bears the signature of the divine transgressor, the Gnostic awakener. And like Prometheus, they are not evil in the old sense. They are complex, morally ambiguous, necessary. They are the midwives of human consciousness. But to whom does that consciousness belong? In the Gnostic texts, those gospels buried at Nag Hammadi, shunned by empire and church alike, the serpent is not Satan, rather, he is a liberator. In the Apocryphon of John, the creator God of the Old Testament is not the ultimate divine source, but a blind, arrogant demiurge, Yaldabaoth, who imprisons souls in flesh and forbids them the knowledge of their true origin. The serpent, in this telling, is an emissary of Sophia, divine wisdom herself, his sin, giving Eve and Adam the key to remembrance, to awaken them from the illusion. Just as Prometheus awakened primitive man by bestowing fire, the symbol of inner illumination, it is in the Hermetic tradition that this connection becomes clearer still. The Emerald Tablet speaks of the as above, so below, and of the divine mind mirrored in human consciousness. But without the spark, the fire, there is no mirror. The great work cannot begin without illumination, and the bringers of that first spark have always been punished. What does that say about the architecture of our cosmos? What kind of world is ruled by forces who seek to suppress awareness? In the ancient mystery schools, these questions were never academic. They were initiatory. The seeker did not simply study myth, they entered it. They became Adam eating the fruit, Prometheus bearing the flame, Lucifer falling through the firmament. Each one a metaphor for a phase of the inner journey, from ignorance to knowledge, from knowledge to exile, from exile to transformation. It was not sin, it was sacrifice. But there is a darker echo, one that trembles beneath the myths like a dissonant chord, for not all light-bearing beings came to enlighten. Some came to rule, some came not as teachers, but as kings and gods. And so we arrive at the Watchers, the mysterious sons of heaven from the Book of Enoch, beings who descended to earth in the ancient days, took mortal wives, and taught forbidden arts to humanity, metallurgy, enchantment, astrology, the craft of war and seduction. The old texts call them fallen angels, others call them civilizers. Their leader, Azazel. And Azazel, like Prometheus, was bound, chained beneath the earth, condemned for giving man the tools of heaven. Is this coincidence, or code, if Prometheus was not merely a titan of myth, but a cipher, a veiled memory of an ancient being, who crossed divine law to uplift man? Then the Watchers are his brothers, the serpent, his twin, the rebel, his reflection. And if so, then we must ask, what was the true nature of that descent? Was it a fall, or a mission? a corruption, or a calling? The mystery deepens, and the veil begins to lift. To answer, we must now follow the watchers themselves, not into heaven, but into the deep time of humanity's sacred prehistory, into the ruins and cuneiform tablets, into Mesopotamia, where the sky gods first touched the soil. We must descend with them. We must witness the first transgression, before the cities of man were carved from stone, before temples reached toward the stars, and before kings wore crowns of gold. The sky cracked open, not metaphorically, but in the records of those who walked before us, written in cuneiform, carved into obsidian, buried beneath millennia of sand. There is memory of a time when beings came down from above, not spirits, not symbols, entities. They were known by many names to the Hebrews. They were the watchers, Grigori, the ones who watch but are not permitted to act. In the book of Enoch, they descended upon Mount Hermon, 200 of them, swearing an oath together that they would not return to the heavens until their task was complete. Their leader, Semyaza, though others elevate Azazel, the dark twin, as the true initiator. They took wives from among the daughters of men, and they taught humanity secrets long withheld by the divine, the art of the blade and the potion, the stars and the calendar, the sigil and the spell. They revealed the forbidden sciences, but forbidden to whom? Who issued the decree? Why must knowledge of how to live, how to shape, how to rule time and space, be concealed from man? The narrative, told through priestly ink, paints the watchers as transgressors. But to the eyes of the esotericist, a different pattern emerges. These weren't demons. They were civilizers. Recall the Sumerian Anunnaki, whose name means those who came down from the heavens. They too descended, bearing law, architecture, astronomy. They too mixed with mortals. They too in time were banished. What connects Prometheus, Lucifer, and the Watchers is not merely rebellion, but introduction. They introduced systems, structures, knowledge. They accelerated the timeline of human evolution. They made man more than beast, and for that they were condemned. Azazel, bearer of secrets, was bound and cast into the desert. Yom Kippur remembers him still, though few know why. Semyaza was said to fall into a trance beneath the earth, sleeping still beneath the mountain. And their children, the Nephilim, the giants of old, were destroyed in a cleansing flood. Do you see it? The pattern. Prometheus gave fire, and was chained. Lucifer gave light, and was cast down. Azazel gave knowledge, and was buried. What were these gifts really in the language of the mystery schools? They were the first initiations, not metaphorical, literal. These beings acted as the first hierophants, opening the gates of perception for an immature humanity. The book of Enoch says Azazel taught the making of swords and knives, shields and breastplates. But this is symbolic language. The sword is the will, the shield is discernment, the breastplate is gnosis. He taught how to defend the self against ignorance, how to wield power without dependence on gods. But the gods, or the entities who posed as them, did not permit this awakening. They preferred obedience. It is here that the myth becomes cosmology, and the cosmology becomes politics. A war in heaven, not a clash of wings and thunderbolts, but a struggle between paradigms, control versus liberation, hierarchy versus illumination. Prometheus, like the Watchers, chose humanity over divinity. And so the Watchers fell, or were made to fall, their names erased, their teachings scattered, like ash across the ages, preserved only in fragments, tablets, and whispered lineages. But the memory endured, across continents, in myths of sky people, star ancestors, gods who walked among men. The Watchers appear again and again, in robes of feathers, in ships of light, in towers that reach to heaven. They did not die. They went underground, into caves, into mystery cults, into secret societies. The flame of their teaching passed hand to hand, generation to generation, hidden behind symbol, and Prometheus, perhaps he too, was one of them, or their last echo. Perhaps the myth is a cipher, and the rock to which he was chained was not a punishment, but a gate, a prison only until the seeker arrives. So we continue. We follow the chain, downward, inward, to the place where the light was buried, beneath the mountain, beneath the myth, where the fire waits to be remembered. The world remembers Prometheus as the chained one, high upon the crags of the Caucasus, or perhaps upon a mountain that no longer bears a name. He was bound not by mortal iron, but by divine decree, his arms stretched against the stone, his back flayed to the wind, his liver torn and reborn. In endless repetition, the gods ensured not death, but persistence, a deathless agony, an eternal example. But what if the myth conceals another layer, one not of punishment, but of concealment? For in esoteric traditions, the mountain is never just a place. It is a temple, a pillar, a threshold between worlds. To be bound beneath it is not merely to be punished, it is to be hidden, sealed, perhaps even preserved. The earliest initiates of the Eleusinian mysteries, descendants of Orphic wisdom, spoke of the god who dies and suffers beneath the earth, only to return bearing illumination. Dionysus was torn, Osiris dismembered, Tammuz broken, and each was cast beneath the soil or stone. And like Prometheus, their torment was cyclical, like the seasons, like the soul. This is not coincidence, this is pattern. In alchemical language, the liver, the organ eaten daily by Zeus eagle, corresponds to the seat of transmutation, the site where poisons become purification. It was believed to be the organ most affected by emotion, especially rage, grief, and ecstasy, crucible of human intensity. Thus, Prometheus' endless sacrifice was not just torment, it was alchemy. Each day, his essence is devoured. Each night, it returns. This is the cycle of the adept, the tearing down and rebuilding of the self. Solve et coagula, dissolve, and reform. It is the very process at the heart of the great work. The eagle, Zeus' chosen beast, descends from the heavens like a solar force, the devouring flame of divine law. But Prometheus does not die. He endures, as must every seeker. So what does this reveal about the nature of his crime? The fire, it seems, was never meant for the hands of the uninitiated. In ancient cults, particularly the Orphic and Mithraic, fire was not an element but a mystery, a threshold of perception. The secret inner light that, once ignited, cannot be extinguished. The fire Prometheus gave was not physical flame, it was technologos, nous, the inner faculty by which a soul becomes sovereign, and the gods, or the archons, as the Gnostics might call them, could not allow this light to spread freely. So Prometheus, the defier, the awakener, was chained, but not merely to a mountain. Within it, here the mystery deepens. For in many myths, mountains are places of entombment and emergence. Think of Mount Mashu in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where scorpion men guard the gates of night, or Mount Sinai, where Moses ascends and returns transformed, or Mount Meru, axis of the Hindu cosmos, where gods and demons churn the ocean of milk. Mountains are where man meets the divine, and within them always is a fire, a flame guarded, hidden, sleeping. Could it be that the myth of Prometheus is not about eternal punishment, but about the location of the secret? Could the chains be symbolic, indicating that what he gave us is not gone, but inaccessible, locked behind myth, metaphor, and ritual? In the old temples of mystery schools, the initiate would descend, always descend, into the darkness, beneath the earth, there, blindfolded, bound, sometimes buried in symbolic tombs. They would confront the death of their old self. Only after torment, after passage through shadow, would they emerge, reformed, bearing light. This is the Promethean journey. He was the first initiate, and perhaps his punishment was never for stealing fire. Perhaps it was for giving it without initiation, to a world not yet ready, to souls not yet purified. And thus he was bound, not to be punished, but to wait for us, for the time when seekers would rise again, when temples would be rebuilt not of stone, but of remembrance, when the fire hidden beneath the mountain would burn in the hearts of those who choose to suffer consciously. And so we stand now. At the threshold, the chains are not just his, they are ours. And somewhere in the symbols of our ancient world, inflamed, in stone, in secret architecture, the fire waits to be reclaimed. We must search the remnants, the forgotten clues, in temples scorched by conquest, in carvings dismissed by scholars, in myths we were told to forget. The fire is still here, but it is encoded. Follow the fire, not the flame that warms your hands, but the one that ignites the inner eye. It is not found in libraries, but in stone, temple, and symbol. Prometheus may have been chained, but his legacy burned its way into matter itself. Wherever ancient man reached toward the sky with reverence and trembling awe, he is there. Begin in the east, in the shrines of Zoroaster, where the fire is still tended in silence by priests who have forgotten why. The Ateshbaran, or fire of victory, is said to be composed of 16 sacred flames, drawn from diverse sources: lightning, hearth, furnace, and funeral pyre. Each flame is a mystery, each an echo. The Zoroastrians believed fire was the manifest presence of divine truth, the living breath of Ahura Mazda. But to those with deeper sight, it is also the spark stolen by Prometheus. Clothed in ritual, protected by secrecy, in India, the Kundalini, fire coils like a serpent at the base of the spine, not metaphorically, but as Shakti, the latent energy of the cosmos slumbering within. When awakened, it rises like fire through the spine, igniting each chakra, a process described in ancient yogic texts with terrifying precision. To ignite it unprepared is to burn oneself. This is no poetic image. It is a warning, like the fire of Prometheus. It must not be taken lightly. Travel to Egypt, and you find the flame hidden in symbol, the eye of Ra, both wrath and illumination, the sacred beetle, Khepri, rolling the sun across the sky, a fire trapped in celestial motion. In the temples of Dendera and Abydos, carvings speak of radiant serpents, lightning-born lights, and unknown technologies. Some call them misinterpretations. Others hear in them the faintest whisper of lost mastery. Science is bound into symbol, guarded in priestly ciphers. But it is not only in the East. In the West, the torch becomes the symbol of those who claim descent from the Titan. The Statue of Liberty, holding aloft a Promethean flame, was designed by Freemasons, descendants, symbolically at least, of ancient temple builders. Her torch is not merely a beacon of freedom, it is a claim. The fire is still ours. The flame lives. In Masonic rites, the initiate is led in darkness, blindfolded, before being shown the light. The ritual recalls both Prometheus' gift and the inner awakening of Gnosis. And in the rituals of the Rosicrucians, the fire becomes a light. Within the tomb, the flame that does not die even in death. The same torch appears in the hand of Hecate, the liminal goddess of crossroads and thresholds. She bears the light that leads through the underworld, an echo of the same fire that guides initiates through inner transformation. And in the ruins of Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, fire temples align with constellations. The pyramid of the sun is built atop a natural cave, a womb of fire and origin. The entire city is mapped according to celestial principles, suggesting that the builders were not simply honoring the heavens, but imitating them. As above, so below. This is no accident. Prometheus did not bring one fire. He brought a pattern. The fire is in the stone, in the orientation of megalithic sites to solstices and stars, in the precise geometry of sacred architecture, in the encoded frequencies of chanted mantras, liturgies, and mudras, in flames that do not consume, as in the story of Moses' burning bush, or the Zoroastrian fire that burns without fuel. Across these cultures, the sacred flame recurs, not as an element, but as a bridge, a transmission of something higher, a stair of light, encoded in stone and chant, waiting for the adept to decipher. Prometheus may have been the first bearer, But the flame was passed down like a secret inheritance. Not everyone forgot. Not everything was lost. Some lineages survived in shadows, in secluded monasteries, in outlawed sects, in the symbolic languages of the alchemists. They did not preserve the fire as doctrine, but as a pattern, a way of seeing, a geometry of truth encrypted in myth. And the greatest of these secrets is this: the fire never left. It is within us. The sacred architecture was always a mirror. The temples we built were reflections of the temple within. The fire of Prometheus, the logos, the divine creative spark, was given to man not as a toy, but as a seed, a flame to tend. But what if this sacred gift, this inner sun, was never meant for all? What if Prometheus broke a cosmic lullaby, awakening everyone, the noble and the wicked, the pure and the corrupt? What if the fire was a divine technology, dangerous, beautiful, explosive? And what if secret societies have been trying, ever since, to reclaim it? The fire of Prometheus did not vanish, it was veiled, not lost, but hidden. And the hands that caught it did not belong to kings or priests, they belonged to initiates, bound by oath, shielded by secrecy, sworn to guard what the gods had once cursed. The myth did not end with the Titan's chains, it evolved. Over the centuries, the fire passed from temple to tomb, manuscript to mouth, symbol to cipher, slipping beneath the reach of empires and inquisitions. And those who held it became the secret architects of civilizations. They called themselves many names: brotherhoods, orders, fraternities. But to those who sought truth above doctrine, they were all one lineage, Promethean in origin. Start with the Pythagoreans, whose music of the spheres was not metaphor, but mathematics pulled from the geometry of flame. They did not just believe the universe had order, they heard it. And in the silence of initiation, they swore not to speak the secrets aloud. The fire was never to be shown to the unprepared. From them came the Hermeticists, who believed the divine was not separate from man, but reflected within. Their teachings, buried beneath the sands of Egypt, re-emerged through the Corpus Hermeticum, a text not of theory, but of transformation. To read it is to remember, and to remember is to ignite. The Gnostic sects followed, the Valentinians, the Sethians, claiming that Christ was not a sacrifice for sin, but a bearer of gnosis, knowledge, like Prometheus, of our divine origin. For this, they were hunted, burned, erased, but their flame survived in symbols. The cross of light, the serpent entwined, they are within the triangle, glyphs that would appear again centuries later in new vestments. The Knights Templar, guardians of secret relics beneath Solomon's temple, were said to have uncovered ancient wisdom during the Crusades, not gold, but memory. Their sudden power and subsequent extermination hint at something far more dangerous than heresy, initiati, on into a forbidden lineage. From their ashes rose the Freemasons, whose rituals still echo with veiled references to the builders of ancient temples, to a light lost and recovered. Let there be light, they say, but it is not the sun's light they seek. It is the light Prometheus gave, the fire of conscious creation, the fire that liberates in their degrees. The initiate dies and is reborn always into greater light. The tools they use, compass, square, plumb, are not just instruments of stone, but of self-measurement. Geometry becomes morality. Architecture becomes alchemy. The temple they build is within, and yet deeper still, beyond masonry and visible rites, lie the Rosicrucians, those of the invisible college. They speak in paradox and poetry, cloaking their truths in allegory. The tomb of Christian Rosenkreuz, they say, was lit by a sun that never set, a clear echo of the undying flame, a hidden Prometheus, across the world, even among shamanic lineages, alchemical sects, druids, and Sufis. This same pattern recurs. Always a secret fire, always a path known to few, always transformation guarded by symbol and ordeal. Why? Because this fire, this sacred gnosis, is not safe. It is power, raw and unfiltered. the power to awaken the divine within man, the power to destroy illusion, and when given to the uninitiated, it becomes poison, like Azazel's teachings, like the fruit of Eden, like the fire of Prometheus. It shatters the old world. So the brotherhoods kept it hidden. They encoded it in cathedrals whose architecture mirrors constellations, in mandalas whose geometry mimics the mind, in stained glass and labyrinths. Sigils and seals in cards, the tarot whose fool walks the same path Prometheus once walked, into chaos, through fire, toward light. To trace the thread of these societies is to trace the vein of sacred memory running through time. Their legacy is not political, not even historical, it is initiatory. They are not protectors of truth, they are guardians of access. And the greatest secret they protect, that the Promethean fire is not simply myth, symbol, or history. It is activation. It lives in the third eye, the pineal spark. The moment a soul remembers it was never a servant, but a mirror of the divine. This is the heresy they swore to protect, the sacred blasphemy that man might become as gods, the same fire the serpent offered in Eden, the same fire the watchers taught on Mount Hermon, the same fire Prometheus hid in a stalk of fennel, and placed long ago into the hands of humankind, but not all were meant to wield it, and now as the age of secrets burns away, it is returning, the light is rising, the veil thins. And in that final revelation, one must ask, was Prometheus a fallen angel, or was he something greater, the first initiate?